E-commerce has proven to be an essential service during the Covid-19 pandemic in Europe and across the world. It has definitely cemented our society and the economy as a whole. During the lockdowns that progressively came in Europe and across the world, e-commerce was, if not the only way, most surely the safest and the easiest way for people to shop. Obviously, it was also a very important driver for B2B and B2C businesses to continue to exist during those lockdowns across the world. As carriers, we of course saw the increase of online sales that resulted in a huge increase of volumes that everyone had to handle. And all major players communicated on tremendous increases of volumes. A few examples: in the USA, UPS had a plus 65 increase of their B2C volumes in the second quarter of 2020. In Europe, DHL communicated on around 25% of increase of their volumes, mainly due to the B2C segment, whereas us as DPDgroup, we managed to successfully handle a plus 50% increase of our B2C volumes in Europe. First of all, we had a very strong acceleration of online sales, so much so that delivery players speak of a continuous peak ever since the month of March. Just to give you an example, online transaction worldwide increased by almost 50% in April 2020. And we also noted some stickiness of behavior because in September 2020 we still had a 17% of increase compared to pre-COVID levels in terms of online transactions, whereas many thought that coming out of the lockdowns and with the opening of the cities, online sales would go down to their previous level. A second trend that was really marked during the COVID-19 crisis was the surge of very specific e-commerce categories, which used to be much more niche in previous times. We saw the surge of online food and grocery sales. For instance, in April 2020, we noted more than 140% of increase for online food sales, which is just amazing. And again, the stickiness of behavior, because in September 2020, we still had more than 50% of increase in online sales of food and groceries compared to pre-COVID times. A second category, also unsurprisingly, was high-tech. Obviously, people during the lockdowns had to equip themselves to be able to work remotely, but also to just take advantage of the time they had to spend at home. It resulted in a very strong increase, again, more than 100% of sales of high-tech online in April 2020, and still very high in September, more than 30% above pre-COVID levels. Our 2019 eShopper barometer highlighted already in 2019 two major trends that were only accelerated by the COVID-19 crisis. First of all, we have the convenience as a major driver of e-commerce. It was present in pre-COVID times, and of course during the lockdowns, e-commerce was almost the only way for people to shop, including categories that are essential on a daily basis, such as food and health products. With the opening of the cities after the lockdown period, we continue to see European e-shoppers buying online more than they did previously, clearly underlining a need for facility and for safety in their daily life and daily purchases. A second trend that we noted was the fact that ecology was already in 2019 a topic for e-shoppers and a concern. Obviously, with the COVID-19 crisis, the concern around a greener environment only increased. We as carriers are aware that we do have an impact on Earth and on the environment. Therefore, there is an urgency for us players in the e-commerce space, both e-tailers and carriers, to act clearly to make the industry greener. We did see some new trends appearing. First of all, during the lockdowns, people who had never purchased online before the COVID pandemic started to purchase online. And it's interesting to see that these new e-shoppers are not necessarily on the typical profile of the e-shopper of the pre-COVID period, let's say, not necessarily millennials and not necessarily only from very dense urban areas. Of course, the big question that still remains is to see whether these new e-shoppers will stick with the online channel after the winter months when, of course, people will continue to buy online. So the question is, will the stickiness of behavior be just medium term or long term? A second trend that we saw was, of course, some niche categories becoming much more commonplace. Just one example, purchasing food and groceries online used to be very niche. Only the very experienced e-shoppers would do that on a weekly basis, let's say, whereas nowadays this has become really the norm. People start buying much more online food and groceries. Last but not least, during the COVID pandemic, social media were used much more than before just for people to remain in contact. And obviously this was a very good opportunity for retailers, for e-tailers, who encouraged a lot social selling. And we did see this growing really, really fast, especially in China, where social selling was already quite present in pre-COVID times and coming slowly but surely to Europe.